The moment arrives at our regular Sunday brunch, not with a bang, but with the quiet slide of an envelope across the polished mahogany table. My dad, Kevin, pushes it toward my sister, Morgan, not me. His words land like stones in the quiet dining room. We've given your wedding fund to your sister. It was a strategic family investment. My mother, Brenda, nods beside him, her smile tight and affirming, while Morgan beams, a conqueror claiming her prize. I just sit there, frozen. My fiancé, Caleb, is a warm, solid presence beside me as 25 years of being the second-best daughter comes crashing down in a single, brutal moment. The $20,000 I'd been planning with, dreaming with, for over a year, gone. Morgan's smug smile tells me everything I need to know. This wasn't a sudden decision, this was a verdict. I don't cry. I just look at Caleb. The silence stretches, thick and suffocating, across the same table where I'd struggled with my art school portfolio while Morgan got private tutoring for her business degree applications. Dad clears his throat and leans back in his chair, the expensive leather creaking under his weight. He's wearing that expression I know so well, the one that signals a lecture disguised as fatherly wisdom is about to begin. Amelia, you have to look at this logically, he starts, his voice dripping with the condescending patience he reserves just for me. This isn't about favoritism. It's about maximizing our family's social capital. Morgan has worked incredibly hard to build a certain kind of life. Morgan straightens in her chair, practically preening under the spotlight of our father's approval. She's wearing a crisp, white blazer that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Her hair is styled in that effortlessly perfect way that actually takes 2 hours and a small fortune in products to achieve. Everything about her, from her diamond stud earrings to her designer watch, is a testament to her success. She's a brand manager at a major fashion label, Mom chimes in, setting down her water glass with a sharp click. A globally recognized brand, Amelia. Do you understand what that means for our family's standing? I do. I've heard about Morgan's achievements so many times they've become the background music to every family gathering. Her promotions, her salary, her corner office with its panoramic city view. And Dylan, Dad continues, gesturing to Morgan's smug fiancé, who sits beside her looking immensely pleased with himself. His family is very well connected in this city. This wedding is an opportunity, a merger of two influential families. Dylan is a junior partner at his father's investment firm, a fact he never fails to mention. He's wearing a tailored suit, even for a Sunday brunch. Now, let's look at your situation, Dad says, and my stomach clenches. Here it comes. The systematic takedown I knew was inevitable. You're a freelance illustrator. A wonderful talent, of course, but it's not stable. That little apartment you have is charming, but it's a rental. My little apartment is a loft I adore, a space I've filled with my art and my life. But that detail is irrelevant to the case being built against me. I feel Caleb's hand find mine under the table, his fingers lacing through mine in a silent promise of support that nearly undoes my composure. And Caleb seems like a fine young man, Mom adds, glancing at him with a polite, dismissive smile. But he works in IT support, doesn't he? It's a respectable job, but it doesn't exactly project ambition. Morgan leans forward, her engagement ring flashing under the chandelier. Her wedding isn't just a party, she explains, her voice a practiced blend of superiority and faux concern. It's a networking event. We're inviting executives from my company, partners from Dylan's firm, people who can elevate our family's entire profile. The guest list alone is a strategic asset. The implication hangs in the air, my wedding, with my artist friends and Caleb's tech colleagues, would be a liability. We've already put deposits down on everything, she continues, a triumphant gleam in her eye. The Grand City Ballroom, the photographer flying in from New York, the 10-piece band. It's all been arranged based on having that $20,000 supplement. She says supplement as if the money was always hers, my contribution a mere footnote. My dreams, my plans for a small, beautiful wedding in the countryside, were just collateral damage in her campaign for social ascension. Every word she speaks is another shovel of dirt on the coffin of my self-worth. It's not just about the money, it's the casual cruelty of it, the absolute certainty in their decision that my future was less important than her party. I can feel the anger, hot and sharp, finally cutting through the shock. For years, I've swallowed the comparisons, the quiet dismissals, the constant feeling of being measured and found wanting. But taking the one thing I had saved for, the one event that was supposed to be mine, and handing it to her as a business expense, that was the final cut. I look at Caleb. His expression is calm, his eyes steady on mine. He doesn't need to ask. He can see the fight in my eyes, the moment the years of quiet acceptance finally burned away. I give him the slightest of nods. A silent confirmation. He squeezes my hand once, then lets go. He stands up slowly, the scrape of his chair against the floor a sudden, sharp sound that commands the room's attention. Everyone stops talking. My father looks annoyed at the interruption. My mother looks confused. Morgan looks irritated that the focus has shifted from her. "Forgive me, Kevin, Brenda," Caleb says, his voice quiet but carrying an authority that makes everyone sit up a little straighter. "I've been sitting here listening to you discuss family finances as a corporate strategy, and I feel I should clarify my own position." He reaches into his pocket and pulls out his phone, his movements unhurried and precise. "You're right that I work in technology. But I think there's been a slight misunderstanding about my role." He taps the screen and places the phone in the center of the table. A sleek, professional website fills the screen. At the top, in bold, elegant letters, it reads, NexusFlow AI. And below it, a title, Founder and Chief Executive Officer. "I'm not in IT support," he says, his voice perfectly level. "I own the company. We build AI-driven logistics platforms for global supply chains. Last quarter, our company was valued at $95 million. The silence that follows is absolute. It's a new kind of silence, one filled not with tension, but with the deafening sound of my family's entire worldview shattering into a million pieces. In the ringing silence, my father's face is a mask of disbelief, his mouth slightly agape. My mother's hand is frozen halfway to her water glass. Morgan looks like she's seen a ghost. Dylan's smug confidence has evaporated, replaced by a slack-jawed stare. Caleb doesn't seem to notice. His attention is entirely on me. "Amelia," he says, his voice softening, his eyes holding mine. "There was another reason I was waiting for the right moment. I was planning to surprise you." He picks up his phone and switches from the corporate website to a photo gallery. He turns the screen so only I can see it at first. An image of a breathtaking private estate in Napa Valley fills the screen, a sprawling villa surrounded by rolling hills of vineyards, all glowing under a golden California sun. "I've been working with a wedding planner for the past 6 months," he says, swiping through the photos. "A private ceremony for our 50 closest friends and family. A weekend-long celebration." He shows me pictures of an outdoor terrace set for a reception, overlooking the valley. Tables adorned with flowers, strings of lights twinkling above. "This is where I wanted to marry you." He keeps swiping. The Michelin-starred chef we'd have flown in. The live jazz trio for the reception. The first-class flights for all our guests. The suite we'd stay in, with a private balcony overlooking the entire estate. I glance up from the phone and see my family leaning forward, straining to see the images that are reshaping reality before their very eyes. Caleb, seeing their desperate curiosity, calmly places the phone back on the table, angled for everyone to see. He continues to narrate the slideshow with a calm, matter-of-fact tone. "The total budget for the weekend is $150,000, he says, as if discussing the weather. "I've already paid the deposits. I wanted everything to be perfect for you, Amelia. Because you deserve a wedding that's about celebrating our love, not about climbing a social ladder." Morgan makes a small, strangled sound. The Grand City Ballroom, the New York photographer, the 10-piece band she was so proud of, it all sounds so painfully provincial now. So small. My father is pale, his eyes darting between Caleb and the phone, the gears in his mind grinding as he tries to process the scale of his misjudgment. He didn't just insult his daughter's fiancé, he insulted a man who could buy and sell his entire world without a second thought. The $20,000, Caleb continues, his gaze sweeping across my parents and my sister, was never the point. The point was the assumption behind it. The assumption that Amelia's happiness was a lesser priority. The assumption that my life, my career, was insignificant. He looks back at me, a universe of love and reassurance in his eyes. This was always for you. Not to prove anything to them. Just to give you the day you've always deserved. His words do more than just overshadow Morgan's wedding. They reframe my family's actions from simple cruelty into something far worse, pathetic, small-minded foolishness. They stole $20,000 from their daughter, thinking it was a strategic investment, while the man sitting next to her was quietly planning a celebration that made their ambitions look like a child's tea party. Caleb pauses, letting the weight of the Napa wedding settle into the room. Then he tilts his head slightly, a thoughtful expression on his face as he looks at my sister. Morgan, he says, his tone shifting from personal to professional. Your label, it's owned by the Viridian Fashion Group, correct? Morgan nods numbly, her eyes wide and confused by the sudden change in topic. Yes, she manages to say. Why? A very well-run conglomerate, Caleb says, almost to himself, as he taps a few things on his phone. They've had impressive growth over the past 5 years. My father looks completely lost, unsure where this new line of conversation is heading. Caleb turns his phone screen toward my father. It's open to a financial news site, displaying a press release headline. NexusFlow AI announces final stages of Viridian Group acquisition. The deal is set to close in 2 weeks, Caleb says calmly. My company is buying the parent company that owns Morgan's brand. We're acquiring her entire corporate ecosystem. The air leaves the room. If Morgan was pale before, she's now translucent. Her career, the very foundation of her identity and my family's pride, is about to be owned by the man she just helped humiliate. Dylan, the investment firm partner, understands the implications immediately. His face is a mixture of horror and dawning terror. He physically shifts his chair an inch away from Morgan. It's a hostile takeover, Caleb clarifies, as if explaining a simple business concept. The current executive board will be restructured. My team has been analyzing every department for efficiency and value alignment. We use proprietary AI to run risk assessments on personnel and brand integrity. He lets that hang in the air for a moment. He then looks from my father, a commercial real estate developer, to Dylan. You see, the thing about our AI is that it builds connections most people miss. It identifies potential liabilities. For example, it cross-references public records, social media, and internal communications to create a complete picture. A family dispute like this, involving theft and profound character misjudgment, it might get flagged. An AI doesn't care about feelings. It just sees a pattern. It sees a key employee, Morgan, associated with a high-risk family dynamic. That could impact her division's stability review. He looks at my father. It might see a developer, Kevin, whose primary investor relationships are with banks that NexusFlow services. A negative character assessment could complicate future loan approvals. He finally turns to Dylan. And it might see a junior partner, Dylan, whose firm's reputation is built on trust and good judgment, now linked to a family demonstrating neither. The threat is no longer theoretical or social. It's systemic. He calls it the ecosystem of consequence. He's not threatening to ruin them. He's simply explaining that in his world, actions have automated, data-driven consequences. Their petty family drama has been ingested by a machine that could systematically dismantle their professional lives, and he is the one who controls the machine. The carefully constructed facade of my family implodes. It's not a slow crumble, it's a detonation. Caleb, we had no idea, my father stammers, lurching forward. His face is slick with sweat. This is all a terrible misunderstanding. A family squabble. It means nothing. It's a data point, Kevin, Caleb replies, his voice devoid of emotion. Nothing more, nothing less. My mother starts pleading. Please, Caleb. Don't punish Morgan for our mistake. We were just trying to do what we thought was best. Her words ring hollow, a desperate attempt to rewrite the last hour. She wasn't doing what was best, she was doing what was easy, what reinforced her own shallow values. The person who breaks first is Morgan. Her face, a perfect portrait of composure just minutes ago, cracks into a mask of pure panic. She whirls on Dylan, her voice a shrill accusation. This is your fault. You were supposed to be the big shot, the one with the connections. Dylan recoils as if she'd struck him. My fault? He scoffs, his voice dripping with contempt. My family builds wealth on integrity. I'm not the one whose family steals from their own daughter. He stands up, smoothing down his suit jacket in a gesture of finality. I think I should go. He doesn't look at Morgan. He looks at Caleb, then at me, with a flicker of something that might be pity. He walks out of the dining room without a backward glance. The sound of the front door closing is like a gavel coming down. Morgan lets out a sob, a raw, ugly sound of complete and utter defeat. Her perfect life, her strategic marriage, her social ascension, all gone in the space of 10 minutes. In the chaos of their meltdown, a strange calm settles over me. The fear, the hurt, the anger, it all solidifies into a single, hard point of clarity. I stand up. My voice, when I speak, is quiet, but it cuts through my mother's frantic apologies and my father's desperate bargaining. Stop. They all fall silent, turning to look at me. For the first time in my life, I have their undivided attention. Not because I've won an award or gotten a promotion, but because I am now the gatekeeper to the man who holds their futures in his hands. This was never about the $20,000, I say, my voice steady and strong. I would have been happy with a potluck wedding in a public park. This was about a lifetime of being told, in 1,000 different ways, that I wasn't enough. It was about my art show you missed for Morgan's dinner party. It was about the Honda you bought her for graduation while I inherited your 10-year-old sedan. It was about every single achievement of mine that was met with polite interest before the conversation immediately turned back to Morgan's latest triumph. You didn't just give her my money. You told me my dreams were a bad investment. You told me the person I love was worthless. You quantified my value to this family, and you decided it was zero. Tears are streaming down my mother's face. My father looks broken, all his bluster and authority gone. Morgan just stares at the empty chair where Dylan used to be. Caleb comes to stand beside me, placing a hand gently on my back. He looks at my family, his expression unreadable. Then he turns to me. Amelia, he says, his voice for my ears alone, yet loud enough for the whole room to hear. NexusFlow can proceed with its standard risk assessments. Or, I can tell the algorithm to ignore this entire data point. The choice is yours. What do you want to do? 3 months later, Caleb and I were married in Napa Valley. It was everything he promised, a weekend of magic, surrounded by people who loved us, under a perfect October sky. The photos did end up in a magazine, a 2-page spread that called it an intimate and authentic celebration. Morgan and Dylan's wedding never happened. The engagement was called off a week after that disastrous brunch. Her subdued, stressful affair became a quiet, lonely autumn. In the months that followed, the pieces of our family began to be put back together, but in a completely different shape. The first piece was a phone call from my father. He asked me to meet him for coffee, just the two of us. He told me he'd started seeing a therapist. Your mother and I realized we were about to lose you, he said, his eyes filled with a regret I'd never seen before. I had to understand why. He confessed that his obsession with Morgan's success was born from his own deep-seated fear of failure. He never made partner at his first firm, a disappointment he'd buried for 30 years. I was pushing my ambitions onto her, he admitted, his voice cracking. I dismissed your path because it wasn't the one I wanted for myself. It wasn't about you, Amelia. It was about my own insecurity. That confession was the mirror of insecurity Caleb had talked about, the moment someone shows you the real reason for their cruelty. A few weeks later, I had lunch with Morgan. She looked smaller, stripped of her usual designer armor. The brand manager job was secure. Caleb had kept his word and walled off our personal lives from his business dealings, but the experience had humbled her. I was so desperate for their approval, she told me, staring into her water glass. Your life seemed so easy because you never seemed to care what they thought. I thought if I was successful enough, shiny enough, they would finally love me without conditions. But it was never enough. I hated that you seemed happy without any of it. Her admission was the second mirror. Her cruelty wasn't about her strength, but about her weakness, a desperate need for the conditional love our parents offered. It wasn't an excuse, but it was an explanation. It allowed a fragile peace to begin forming between us. The family dynamic is permanently altered. There are no more lectures on maximizing social capital. My mother now asks about my illustration projects with genuine interest. My father brags about my latest commission to his friends. They treat Caleb not as a walking bank account, but as the kind, brilliant man who loves their daughter. Our family gatherings are quieter now, but they are also warmer, rebuilt on a new foundation of honesty and a hard-won respect. The story concludes not with a perfect family, but with a real one, scarred but healing. True wealth isn't about a $95 million valuation, it's about the richness of authentic relationships. True success is finding the courage to demand your worth and the grace to forgive those who are brave enough to admit they were wrong. What do you think about this family's transformation? Have you ever felt like the bad investment in your family? Share your story in the comments below, because your experience might be the one thing someone else needs to hear today.